Welcome to Cause Before Symptom, uncovering the real cabal and spiritual forces that are controlling the world. And now, here is your host, James Carter.
Welcome to Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carter. Today is February 7th, 2026, and tonight's episode is all about Part 20, our examination of the book Song of Solomon from the Bible. And we're going to examine the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox version to the King James Version. We've been doing this for quite some time, and I do believe it's going to take us another month to finally finish, but we're halfway there. We've gone through half of the book so far, and it's really been enlightening me in understanding the actual King James Bible, thanks to the Ethiopian canon, because there's a lot more. There's a lot less angry tone in the Ethiopian versus the merciful tone that you get from the Ethiopian. So the King James, it's not a bad version. It's the correct version, we found out. But the Ethiopian actually complements it and teaches us more. And that's what we've been learning throughout this whole journey. And as I've mentioned before, I know this kind of teaching is very bland, and you're probably only going to learn like maybe one or two things. It's not like, going to blow your mind, but I really honestly think that after recording all of this, it's going to be a wonderful tool for people to be able to understand what is the true, real difference between the Ethiopian canon and the King James. And I will have every episode there for all eyes to see, and that's what I'm doing it for. Okay, so the Song of Solomon, it stands apart in tone from all the surrounding books. It does not narrate conquest or covenant failure. It does not measure transience like Ecclesiastes, nor does it instruct in proverb form. It sings. Its language is intimate, lyrical, embodied, and filled with repeated longing. Where Ecclesiastes exposed vapor, the song celebrates union. Now, the opening line immediately establishes the register. Let him kiss me. Well, the reader, or the listener, is placed inside desire rather than doctrine. Yet this desire is not chaotic. It is framed by mutuality, exclusivity, and repetition of restraint. The recurring refrain, "Do not awaken love until it so desires," anchors the poetry in timing and order. Love is invited, but not forced. Because this book is built on metaphor, fragrance, garden imagery, vineyard language, and physical description, translation carries unusual weight. Words for love, desire, body, and flame can either preserve tender balance or heighten sensual intensity. A slight lexical shift can tilt the text toward devotional allegory, romantic lyricism, or sacred covenant poetry. So tone becomes very decisive here in this book. Now, the Ethiopian Tewahedo Witness historically preserves the song within covenant and ecclesial interpretation while allowing its literal beauty to remain intact. The King James rendering has shaped centuries of English devotional language, often amplifying the poetic cadence through archaic phrasing. The theological structure remains consistent in both traditions, but cadence influences perception. So throughout the song, love is described as enclosed garden, sealed fountain, tended vineyard. These are not images of impulse. They are images of guarded belonging. Desire is expressed openly, but always within boundary. The mutual voice of bride and bridegroom reinforces equality rather than domination. So the climactic declaration that love is strong as death and its flame a mighty fire gathers the entire book into intensity without losing order. Love is powerful, but not reckless. It is covenantal rather than consumptive. Translation must preserve this distinction carefully. So this examination will follow the established anchor. Scripture will be quoted directly in both witnesses before commentary is offered. The aim here is not to allegorize prematurely or to romanticize excessively, but to listen for cadence. In poetry, a single word can amplify or soften the entire emotional arc. So Song of Solomon does not interrupt theology. It embodies it. So the question guiding this comparison remains consistent. Does translation alter theology or does it shape cadence? Well, in a book where longing and restraint coexist, tone determines whether love is heard as sacred union or heightened romance. Shout out to everybody on the live chat Rumble. Number one warrior, we've got Scorpion. Scorpion says, hey guys, working late tonight. I'll be with y'all soon. Hey, thank you for being here and letting us know of your presence. Number two warrior is Boots Hafner, Spleef Sparker. How's it, Pastor James Carner, voice of the airwaves and creator of ElitePotion.com. Boots says, welcome, warrior family. Nice to see you all here. And let's hit that thumbs up button and then hit the X, then thumbs up, then live chat. Thank you. Yes, let's all do that right now if you could, because the Rumble algorithm only judges me based on how many likes I get, and not how many people subscribe. So do me a favor, follow me right now. Take your thumb, hit the X button, then hit thumbs up, then hit live chat, and I promise you won't lose your spot. Thank you. And number three warrior is Texas militia official saying howdy with the cowboy emoji. That always completes me. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Let's get into breaking news.
Welcome to Shitty Breaking News with your host, James Carner, offering his shitty opinion.
Savannah Guthrie says they received a message from the mother's kidnappers. Well, now we're getting somewhere. Interesting. I don't know what to say about this case other than it's very sad that Savannah's mom got kidnapped. I don't understand why they think Savannah has all kinds of money. Now, she may have a couple $1 million, but probably most of that money is just tied up in real estate. It's not sitting in a bank. So I think these kidnappers are dumb. They're most definitely not what I would say a false flag event to get us to look somewhere else, because I don't think Savannah is that important to stop the world. But I do believe that the kidnappers are real and they didn't think this one through. And I do believe also that they're going to get caught and it's only a matter of time. And maybe this could all be, all done by the FBI, a false plant. I don't think so, but what if? What if Kash Patel needs more trust in the FBI and this whole story was planned all along just to get us to accept Kash Patel and his FBI. So when they find her mother and they release her and then they're like, look, see, the FBI is worthy. We need the FBI. Well, if that really is the case, screw you, you bunch of manipulating motherfuckers. That's my thought. But I really do believe that it's not the FBI. I don't think Kash Patel is that smart. But I do believe that this is a really horrible botched job of ransom. Reaction to Trump's racist post shows he is not always immune to politics. Well, apparently he had a reaction to him calling the Obamas a bunch of apes. We talked about it last night. Hey, is Trump a racist? I really don't care. He's in charge right now. To say that, oh, well, he's a racist, it's not going to help anything. It's not going to help the country. I think it's just a bunch of useless, wasteless words for anybody to use their emotions to get involved with. Because this is what the media does. They want to tug on your heart and make you angry so that you don't look at the fact that they're stealing money from you and your children's children. That's the truth. So who cares if Trump's a racist or not? He's in charge, and you can impeach him, but he ain't going anywhere. He's got another 2-3 years to go, and it's only going to get worse. Not for the corporations, of course, but for the people. Because that's what government does. They do just like what Satan does. It steals, it kills, and destroys. That's all they care about. They don't care about you. They give you the crumbs, but on the other face, they really show you a big show about how much they care about you. Ooh, look at Trump's going to lower the drug costs. Well, all that can change when a Democrat president comes in. So every 4 years, it's like they pass 150 executive orders, and then the next one comes in and then turns them all off. And it's just going to be back and forth. And if we buy into this bullshit, then we're going to continue being a country that's divided. And that is our problem. We need to do something about it. Japan votes in snap election as Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi takes a gamble. Well, good luck, Japan. You're 250% over your gross national product, your GDP, your gross domestic product, meaning you're in debt 250% versus America's 150% in debt. So you're kind of screwed, and I don't even know if your snap election is going to help your country. You need cash, and you need it quick, and I don't know how to help you with that. Council member Nithya Raman to run for LA mayor, challenging one-time ally. Well, I don't know what that means, but apparently it has to. Well, guys, I'm going to have to do a quick little break here. So this is how it goes when you do a live show. Emergency happens, and I've got to tend to an emergency. So stick around. I'll be right back. Give me 5 minutes, okay? When no one's home, or watch my son. It's just what it is. But yeah, so we're in breaking news right now. I want to take a step back and announce Anonymous 001100 says, "Hey James, Kara and Kieran are here. What's up, guys? Thank you very much for being here on the live. I really appreciate that. We actually end up having a prayer session with Kira and Kieran today, and I think it went really, really well. I was very pleased and happy, and I hope you guys were too. Texas militia official says, breaking, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. went dinosaur bone hunting with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell per the Epstein files. Wow, that's interesting. Guys, he's a Kennedy. I told you the Kennedys are corrupt. I told you the Kennedys, and I proved it to you, that they're part of the 13 illuminated families here in America. Robert F. Kennedy is nothing more than a shill. He's a liar. He's a thief. He's everything. Remember, Kennedys like to kill people. If you date a Kennedy, you die. That's pretty much their MO. Robert Gertison is here saying, hey, y'all, here to learn about Song of Solomon. And then he says, hi, Boots. And then 1776 is the answer to tyranny. Says, exactly, bro. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Let's get back into breaking news. So we just talked about council member Nithya Raman to run for LA mayor. Well, probably Nithya Raman is either working for China or not. It's either going to be China or the Orsinis, the Lees or the Orsinis. One of them is going to get a hold of the mayor position in LA. And LA, well, oh, yes. And LA is as evil as it can get. Zelensky, oh, he's back in the news. Whoa, there's still a war going on over there? Huh. Zelensky says Russia is proposing huge economic deals with the U.S. Well, What do you care? Who cares? Has nothing to do with you. We give you all kinds of things. What do you give for us, Zelensky? A pat on the back? We've given you money. We've given you food. We've given you weapons. We've given you all kinds of things. We've even given you a reach around. So what have you given to us, Zelensky, that makes you worth anything? You'd better give America our resources after we've put in, what, $500 billion into your bullshit war? You're gonna pay up, pal. And Zelensky, who cares about Russia and American deals? We've given you money. You wanted to pick a fight with Russia. That's on you, okay? Pick a fight with Russia. You're stupid. That's the dumbest thing you could ever do. But you did it. You picked a fight with them. You didn't just give in. Because, dude, Russia is going to kick your ass. And they got all the time in the world to play with you like a mouse, like a cat and mouse. So who cares what Russia's doing with America? Russia is going to do what Russia wants. They're going to make sure they take care of their people. Not really, but take care of their interests. So Zelensky, we're coming for your resources, and we're going to get it. Files detail Epstein's dealings with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Uh-oh, Howard, they're coming for you. Good luck. You know what I have to say about the Epstein list, and we got to give China credit because China is the Democratic National Committee Party, and they are releasing the Epstein files now, and there is nothing that Trump can do. There's nothing. It's not going to stop, okay? Half the media is owned by China, half is owned by the Orsinis, and it's the Orsini and the Lee family fighting it out. So who's going to take control of America? Well, right now, the Orsini family have control of America. And after 3 years, because everyone hates Trump, they're going to put in another Democrat. That's what I predict. And that Democrat is going to undo everything that Trump did, and it's going to favor China. So we'll see. But I don't know how they're going to turn things around on Venezuela since, well, you know what happened. We took their stuff. 1776 says he's Obama. CIA installed POS. Who is? And he says, while they go through your luggage after going through your Russian hotel. Well, or getting peed on. I think that's what Trump enjoys, golden showers from Russians. But what do I know? I'm just a hick from Oregon. That is breaking news. When we come back tonight, we're going to be talking about the examination of Song of Solomon, the difference between the Ethiopian Orthodox and the King James Bible. That's what we're doing, and I'm excited about this show. We'll see ya.
Why do 75% of people feel exhausted all the time? The answer might surprise you. In the 1920s, Standard Oil decided to dive into medicine. They pushed synthetic petroleum into our drugs. Sure, it masked symptoms, but it wrecked our guts. Our good bacteria, which fight off parasites and heavy metals, got wiped out by crude oil. But here's the good news. We can fix this by going back to nature. Introducing Elite Potion, the world's top detox program. It restores your good bacteria by removing toxic threats like aluminum, strontium, barium, and parasites. Imagine feeling energized and alive again. They said there couldn't be a pill that did it all. We invented it. Visit elitepotion.com and reclaim your health from synthetic pharmaceuticals. Your body will thank you.
Hey, George, why is the IRS taking so much of my money? Why would you bring that binding contract onto my vessel? I thought we were all in the same boat and pay our taxes. You mean taxation without representation? You should have never worn a red coat on this ship with those ridiculous forms. You don't even live in D.C. I've been rolling in my grave since 1913. Why are you binding yourself to a contract to Washington, D.C. that has no bearing on you? For this reason, we set the 13 colonies free from this type of tax. Do you know what this document is? It protects you from a direct tax from the national government. Which of these would you rather live by? What about you? Do you also sign binding contracts every April 15th? Click the link below
and regain your freedom.
Guy, we're back to the show. Part 20. Examination of Song of Solomon between the Ethiopian canon and the King James Bible. Song of Solomon does not argue. It actually breathes. And remember, I told you the only reason why I started investigating Ethiopia is because it talks more about breath than the King James does. And I wrote a book called The Breath War, how the esoteric vampires out there are trying to take our breath from us. And after Ecclesiastes measured vapor and judgment, which we learned last night, the voice then changes again. The setting moves from dust and mortality to fragrance and garden. And the cadence, it slows and then softens and begins to sing. There are no kings conquering cities here. There are no prophets confronting rebellion. There is longing, answered longing, and the careful guarding of love in the Song of Solomon. Let me quote, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth." The line here is immediate. It does not introduce itself with any explanation. It places the listener inside desire. Yet the desire is not frantic. It is spoken, not seized. It is invited, not taken. That distinction must be heard before interpretation rushes in. So this book has often been handled in extremes, especially from theologians. Some have reduced the Song of Solomon to mere romance. Others have stripped it into pure allegory. Yet the text itself refuses both simplifications. The lovers speak to one another directly. Their bodies are described poetically. Their longing is expressed without apology. And still, throughout the song, a refrain returns like a boundary marker. Do not awaken love before its time. Now, translation becomes delicate here. Words describing fragrance, beauty, embrace, flame, these can either preserve tenderness or exaggerate intensity. A phrase can feel sacred or theatrical depending on the cadence. Well, in prose, tone can be corrected by explanation. In poetry, tone is theology. So the garden imagery is not incidental. A garden is enclosed. A vineyard is tented, and a fountain is sealed. These are covenant images. Love is the song. It is not portrayed as wandering desire. It is protected desire. It is mutual belonging. It is invitation within order. Now, the Ethiopian Tewahedo Witness and the King James rendering, they both preserve the structure of the song. Yet their cadence may differ. Archaic phrasing can heighten lyric quality. Modern clarity can soften excess. The question is not whether the theology changes. The question is how the sound of love is shaped by translation. So the song does not celebrate impulse detached from boundary. It celebrates union secured within it. Now, desire is not condemned. It is consecrated. The flame is powerful, but it is not wildfire. It's guarded fire. So this examination tonight will not allegorize first. It will not sentimentalize first. Scripture will be heard in both witnesses. The poetry will be allowed to breathe before commentary even speaks. Song of Solomon stands as a reminder that covenant is not only law and judgment. It is affection between you and your Creator. It is longing answered. It is belonging sealed. And in a book where intimacy is sung rather than defined, even a slight shift in wording can reshape the sound of love itself. And my understanding is that the Song of Solomon was written before he fell. But I could be wrong, but that was my understanding. I don't have the information in front of me right now. So let's talk about the opening tone. Let him kiss me. The song begins without any explanation, without genealogy, without narrative frame. It opens inside desire. The first line must be heard plainly before interpretation attempts to guide it. Now, here it is in the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Witness, and I quote, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Because of the fragrance of your good ointments, your name is like perfume poured forth. Therefore the maidens love you. Draw me after you, let us run. The king has brought me into his chambers. We will rejoice and be glad in you. We will remember your love more than wine." Now here's that same, but in the King James rendering. "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine. Because of the savor of thy good ointments, thy name is as anointment poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love thee. Draw me, we will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than wine." So the structural parallel between the witness is clear. The difference rests in cadence and lexical tone. The Ethiopian renderings fragrance and perfume read like or with gentle clarity. The King James words savor and ointment, they carry older English texture, which can sound heavier or more ceremonial to modern ears. And the opening line dates not command possession. It invites affection. Let him kiss me expresses longing, not seizure. The voice is active but not aggressive, and the desire is spoken openly. So the tone is tender rather than urgent. The comparison of love to wine establishes intensity without any disorder. Wine symbolizes delight, warmth, and celebration. The beloved's love is better than wine, not because it intoxicates recklessly, but because it surpasses ordinary pleasure. So the metaphor elevates affection without collapsing into indulgence. Remember, God doesn't like us to get drunk. He knows you do, but he doesn't like it because when you get drunk beyond a certain point, that's where the spirits can take over. Because at that time, when you said, I think I want another drink after 2 or 3, you're inviting those spirits in because you're saying to God, hey, I got this one. I'm okay. I can handle 3 drinks. Then you wake up in a ditch with a condom next to you. Not good. I know what you're thinking. Did that happen to you, James? No, thank God. It was a closet. Now, the imagery of fragrance and name introduces reputation and presence. I was joking, by the way. A name poured out like perfume suggests influence spreading gently, not forcefully. The Ethiopian phrasing, perfume poured forth, it feels soft and immediate. The King James, anointment poured forth, feels more formal, slightly more elevated in sound. But neither distorts meaning, but tone, it shapes atmosphere. The line, draw me after you, let us run, introduces a motion, not emotion, but a motion. Yet it remains mutual. The speaker is drawn, but also willing. And the King James phrasing, draw me, we will run after thee, that retains the same structure, but it carries archaic cadence that can feel more stately than intimate to modern listeners. So the movement into his chambers must be heard carefully here. It does not describe conquest. It describes simple belonging. The joy that follows is shared. We will rejoice and be glad. Well, the tone remains mutual, not hierarchical. So this opening establishes the book's emotional register. If translation heightens the language into theatrical romance, the song may sound exaggerated. But if translation preserves tenderness and clarity, well, the song sounds covenantal and restrained. This is why the Ethiopian book complements the King James. So the examination begins here because the first lines determine whether the book is heard as impulsive desire or ordered affection. Both witnesses preserve the structure of longing, fragrance, and shared joy. But the difference lies in cadence. And in poetry, cadence determines whether love feels sacred or heightened beyond balance. Boot says, okay, I was going to say I'm right here. You don't have to call me out. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. Faceplant and what is that? Is that the male sign and then a wink with the tongue sticking out? I think Boots has sparked a spleef. He's getting his high on. The song continues not with physical description alone, but with atmosphere. Desire is expressed through scent, name, and presence. The language is sensory, but not crude. It must be heard carefully because metaphor here carries theological undertones of reputation, character, and covenant belonging. So, Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Witness, it reads, and I quote, because of the fragrance. Oh, sorry, let's take a step back here. Boot says, in the ditch. We were talking about when I was in the ditch. No, I wasn't in the ditch, but it was a funny joke. He's like, hey, okay, I was going to say, I'm right here. You don't have to call me out. That he was the one that was in the ditch with a condom next to him. Boots, you sicko. Hey, do you really need another drink? That's all I'm saying. Do you really need it? Well, that's when you let spirits in. Don't they call alcohol spirits? That's a reason. So here's the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Witness. It says, and I quote, because of the fragrance of your good ointments, your name is like perfume poured forth. Therefore, the maidens love you. Now here's the King James rendering. Because of the savor of thy good ointments, thy name is as ointment poured forth. Therefore, do the virgins love thee? Do they love thee? Well, the structural form is nearly identical, yet tone really shifts slightly in sound here. Fragrance and perfume, they feel immediate and gentle to modern ears. That's the Ethiopian. But savor and ointment, they carry an older, more formal cadence. So the difference is very subtle, but it changes the atmosphere here. One reads as intimate and the other reads as elevated, almost ceremonial, but they actually both mean the same thing. So the metaphor of a name poured out like perfume suggests that attraction is not merely physical. A name represents character, reputation, and essence. But when a name spreads like fragrance, it does not overpower. It diffuses. It invites. As the imagery is relational, not aggressive. So the phrase, therefore the maidens love you, or therefore do the virgins love thee, must also be weighted very carefully here. What's up, Philip Del Piano? The point is not competition. It is acknowledgement of appeal. The beloved's presence is widely admired, yet the focus remains singular between the two primary voices of the song. Attraction is recognized without dissolving exclusivity. And tone really matters here. If translation heightens sensual imagery beyond metaphor, then the passage risks sounding indulgent. If translation flattens the sensory language, the poetry loses its warmth. Both witnesses preserve the metaphor, but cadence determines whether the emphasis feels romanticized or restrained. Anonymous says, do you think weed carries the same issue as alcohol? No judgment, because we are literally smoking right now. Guys, anytime you abuse something, then you're taking it too far. And that's really it. So if you're abusing it would be waking and baking, being high all the time. God is jealous of that because you are getting high, or even when a person drinking, they're getting a buzz on, and you're doing that in replacement of him. Now, he's not mad at you. He's not angry. He knows why you're doing it because it feels good, but he's been trying to tell you for years that, hey, I can offer that same kind of feeling, but without harming your body. Meaning the Holy Ghost inside of you can give you that pleasure, just like King Solomon's talking about right now. You see, the closer you get to God, the more intimate you become. And the more intimate you become, the more he treats you like a lover. And in this poetry of Solomon and his song, he's writing about his love for Jesus and how his earthly pleasures just don't compare to what God gives us. And so anything in excess, then you need to question yourself. Do I need more? Is this important? Does this make me happy? Well, it's only short term. God can do all of those if you get rid of everything. I don't smoke pot. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I do chew nicotine gum, but it doesn't really do much. But I don't replace any feelings from God, meaning he gives me that warmth when I need it the most. That's the comforter. The Holy Ghost lives inside of us to do that. And Solomon is singing a song about how the Holy Ghost comforts him. So both witnesses, the Ethiopian and the King James, they preserve the metaphor, but cadence determines whether the emphasis feels romanticized or restrained. And unfortunately, the King James makes it sound way restrained. I didn't do it. Now, the imagery of fragrance anticipates the garden language that follows later in the book. Scent spreads within enclosed space. It suggests proximity and intimacy without spectacle. Now, the love described in the song is not public display. It is cultivated presence. In covenant theology, a name carries weight. It represents identity and standing. Now, the compassion of love to wine and of name to perfume suggests that attraction is rooted in character as much as beauty is. The metaphors elevate affection into something honorable, but not impulsive. So the Ethiopian phrasings clarifies and allows the metaphor to breathe naturally, right? So the King James cadence, though, faithful it is, can feel more stylized to modern ears. But neither alters the theological core. Both preserve the association between love, reputation, and delight. So this should be reinforcing that desire in the song is not chaotic appetite. It is responsive attraction shaped by admiration. And the examination continues to listen for balance, warmth, without excess, and imagery without exaggeration, and intimacy without disorder. So as the song unfolds, imagery then deepens. The language moves from fragrance to longing into space, garden, vineyard, fountain. And these are not accidental metaphors. Remember, Solomon was very smart and he had a lot of wisdom, more wisdom than anybody on earth at that time. But they carry structure. Love in this book is not wandering desire. It is enclosed, it's cultivated, and protected. And the text must be heard with that architecture in mind. Nobody ever told you to have that architecture in mind when you read the Song of Solomon. Now you know. Here it is in the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Witness, and I quote, "A garden enclosed is my sister, my bride, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruits, fragrant henna, and spikenard." Let's get us some spikenard and have a party. Here is the same verse in King James. "A garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Thy plants are an orchard of pomegranates with pleasant fruits, camphire with spikenard." Well, the parallelism here is very strong, yet the tonal shading shifts kind of slightly. The Ethiopian renderings, bride speaks directly of covenant union. The King James term spouse carries similar meaning, but with a more formal, archaic resonance. Henna, in modern clarity, differs from campfire. It's like campfire. In older English, shaping how the fragrance imagery is perceived. So the key phrase is garden enclosed. Well, the enclosure matters. The garden is not an open field. It is a cultivated space with boundary. And the fountain is sealed, but not exposed. So these images frame intimacy as protected, not public. These images frame it that way. So the love in the song is not a spectacle, it's stewardship with God. Now, the repetition of enclosure language encounters any reading that treats the song as unbounded sensuality. But the imagery insists on exclusivity because he says, my sister, my bride, or my sister, my spouse. Well, this reinforces belonging without reducing the other to possession. He's not saying, I make love to my sister and my bride. Both of them are my spouse. He's saying, the love of God and the intimacy that I have with him is like the love I have for my sister, the love I have for my bride. And all of that is not public. It's between us. It's where I belong. It's a love story. It's belonging without reducing the other to possession. So the affection here is intimate, but it's not exploitative. If that makes sense. So tone, again, becomes decisive. If translation intensifies the sensual detail while softening the boundary language, well, the balance actually shifts. If translation preserves both fragrance and enclosure equally, then the covenant structure remains visible. Yes, that's my dog barking in the back. Norman! He's just going to continue barking. Norman! Quiet! Nah, it didn't work. Dogs. Okay, so tone again becomes decisive, right? If translation preserves both fragrance and enclosure equally, the covenant structure remains visible. Both witnesses maintain the architecture, though cadence may feel more lyrical in the King James and more direct in the Ethiopian rendering. So the orchard imagery extends the metaphor as pomegranates and spices are cultivated fruit. They're not wild growth. They require tending. They're hard to keep whole and pure for harvest. So the song does not celebrate impulse detached from care. It celebrates fruitfulness with guarded space. So the foundation being sealed is particularly significant. A sealed fountain suggests purity and exclusivity. It's not communal water, it is reserved. We need a pic of Norman. All right, hold on. I'm going to pull him in. Norman, come. 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 Norman, come. Where are you? Norman. Come on. Come on. There you go. Gonna bark, 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 bark. This is my dog, Norman. Say hi. All right, let's put this back on. Yeah, that's Norman. He is a Chewini. Are you a Chewini? Are you a Chewini? Are you a Chewini? Are you a Chewini? Hmm? Oh, 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 oh. He's not used to being held like this. All right, there you go. All right. Now you met my dog. No, there is no skunk out there because I can't smell it. All right. All right, back to the show. The fountain being sealed is particularly significant here. A sealed fountain suggests purity and exclusivity. It's not communal water, meaning water for everyone. Okay? It's reserved. It's special. And this language aligns the song with covenant imagery elsewhere in Scripture. Isn't that interesting? Where sealed things belong within promise and protection. So this reinforces that the song is very structured. It sings, but it sings within walls. So the metaphors here are warm, but they are not chaotic. And the Ethiopian and King James Witness both preserve this enclosure language pretty clearly. The difference, though, lies in tone and modern clarity versus archaic lyricism. Now, the examination must continue listening for this balance. Philip says, wow, looks like my dog's brother. You mean my brother's dog? Your dog looks like my brother. Thought that was funny. Cultivated boundary is what we're talking about. Desire through the balance. Desire is expressed openly, but always within cultivated boundary. The garden is not abandoned to wilderness. It is tended and closed and sealed. This is God's love for us. And in this book, love is not merely felt, it's guarded. And one of the most defining features of the Song of Solomon is that both lovers speak. The book does not silence the bride, nor does it render the bridegroom as a distant figure. Dialogue shapes the poem, and this mutual exchange must be heard carefully because tone in dialogue can subtly tilt authority or preserve equality. Here it is in the Ethiopian Tewahedo, Orthodox witness, and I quote, "My beloved is mine, and I am his. He feeds among the lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine." Now here's that same verse in the King James rendering. "My beloved is mine, and I am his. He feedeth among the lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine." The symmetry itself, it's striking, as both witnesses preserve the reciprocal structure here. They're the exact same thing. And the repetition reinforces equality rather than hierarchy. So the bride speaks with clarity here. She claims and is claimed. So the order of the phrases actually matter. "My beloved is mine and I am his" presents desire first as reception, then as offering. And then later, "I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine" reverses emphasis. The shift suggests deepening surrender, but not domination. The tone remains balanced. So the Ethiopian phrasing reads with straightforward clarity. The King James archaic verb forms such as feedeth create poetic distance, but do not distort meaning. And the cadence may feel more formal in English tradition, but the relation or the relational symmetry remains intact. So throughout the song, the bride describes the beloved and the beloved describes the bride. Each voice praises the other. Each seeks the other. This mutually counters interpretations, or this mutuality counters interpretations that reduce the song to male-centered praise. And the text itself preserves reciprocity. So tone becomes critical when reading lines of admiration. If translation exaggerates praise into hyperbole, beyond poetic convention, the relationship can feel theatrical. If translation preserves metaphor without excess, then the affection feels intimate and grounded. So both witnesses, they maintain metaphorical richness while keeping dialogue intact. The mutual voice also protects the song from imbalance. Love here is not conquest, it is shared recognition. And the repeated use of "my beloved" and "my bride" signals closeness without erasing any agency. Theoretically, this symmetry carries weight. Covenant love mirrors commitment on both sides. So the song's structure quietly reflects this through dialogue. Neither voice overwhelms the other, and the poetry flows back and forth. So the examination must continue listening for how translation preserves this equilibrium. The Ethiopian witness's clarity and the King James lyric cadence both sustain reciprocity. The question is not doctrinal divergence, but tonal nuance. Does the relationship sound tender and balanced, or elevated and distant? Well, in this part, the architecture of belonging remains mutual. Love is spoken, answered, and reaffirmed. So the song's intimacy is not monologue, it's a dialogue between him and his creator. So as the song moves through longing and praise, a refrain appears that governs the entire book. It interrupts intensity with caution. It slows desire with restraint. This repeated line must be heard carefully because it establishes moral rhythm within the poetry. Now, in the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox witness, it says, and I quote, "I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, do not stir up nor awaken love until it so desires." Now, here's that in the same, but in the King James rendering. I charge you, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, that ye stir not up nor awake my love till he please. The structural form remains very close, but the tone shifts slightly in phrasing. The Ethiopian renderings, until it so desires, emphasizes timing inherent within love itself. The King James phrase, till he please, personalizes the restraint and introduces ambiguity about agency. One reads as rhythm-bound, and the other reads as relationally timed. So the command, I charge you, carries solemnity in both witness. The speaker is not pleading casually. She is instructing the daughters of Jerusalem, or he is, symbolic observers, not to force what must unfold naturally. So love in this book is very powerful, but it is not to be rushed. Take your time. So the repetition of this refrain throughout the song creates structural balance as intensity rises. The refrain then lowers it as desire grows vivid, and the refrain steadies it. So the poetry never loses warmth, but it never abandons boundary. And tone matters here more than in any other line. If translation heightens urgency without preserving caution, then the book tilts toward unrestrained passion. If translation overemphasizes prohibition, the warmth of the song cools unnecessarily. So the balance between flame and patience must remain intact. Now, the Ethiopian phrasing feels direct and rhythmically clear, while the King James retains lyrical gravity through archaic structure. But neither witness removes any restraint. Both preserve timing as essential to the theology of love. So the refrain reveals that the song is not celebrating impulse detached from order. It is affirming that love matures within appointed season. Don't rush love. What's the hurry? And the warning is not repression, it is protection. Don't rush it so God can protect you. Now, theologically, timing reflects wisdom. Just as Ecclesiastes named a time for every purpose under heaven, well, the song insists that love, too, has its appointed hour. The connection between the two books is subtle but very present. Passion is acknowledged, yes, but discipline governs it. So this refrain prevents misreading the song as indulgence, and it anchors the poetry in covenant timing. The examination must continue to weigh how each witness renders this command, whether the tone feels tender and measured or formal and distant. So in this book, love is strong as death, but it is also patient as season. The refrain ensures that fire remains guarded flame, not consuming blaze. Now, the song now moves into extended descriptions of physical beauty. These passages are among the most delicate in the entire canon. They are detailed, metaphor-rich, and unapologetically embodied. The way they are translated determines whether the poetry feels sacred and elevated or exaggerated and theatrical. The text must be heard without embarrassment and without embellishment. Here it is in the Ethiopian Tewahedo, I read, and I quote, "Behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. Your eyes are like doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn sheep. Yet they have come up from the washing, and everyone bears twins, and none is barren among them." Hear the same verse in King James. "Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes. Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Gilead. Thy teeth are like a flock of sheep that are even shorn," which is white, "which come up from the washing, whereof everyone bears twins, and none is barren among them." So the metaphors are identical in substance here. The difference lies in cadence, though. The Ethiopian rendering reads with direct clarity, but the King James phrasing carries elevated rhythm and archaic structure, which can sound more ceremonious to modern ears. But neither distorts the imagery, but the atmosphere shifts slightly in tone. So the comparisons themselves must be understood within ancient poetic convention. Goats descending a hillside evoke movement and shine. Sheep freshly washed suggest purity and symmetry. These are not literal measurements. They are symbolic admiration. The poetry celebrates form through pastoral imagery. Tone becomes critical when modern readers encounter these metaphors. And if translation heightens sensuality through intensified language, well, the passage risks sounding indulgent. If translation flattens imagery, the poetry loses vitality. So both witnesses preserve metaphor without descending into crudeness. So the repetition of "you are fair" establishes affirmation rather than possession. The beloved is praised, yes, but not objectified. The description moves slowly from eyes to hair to teeth to lips and neck, building admiration through layered imagery. The cadence matters because rhythm shapes whether the praise feels reverent or exaggerated. So throughout these passages, the bride also describes the bridegroom in parallel detail. The mutuality remains intact, your relationship between you and Jesus. The song does not allow one-sided admiration. Both are celebrated. The symmetry preserves relational balance. And theologically, the body is not treated as shameful. It is spoken of poetically within covenant context. The metaphors elevate physical beauty into artistic expression rather than mere sensuality. So the garden and pastoral imagery soften intensity into lyric symbolism. And if you're not careful, you could read this as just Solomon being a sicko and, touching himself while he thinks of the God. But that's not what he's doing. The Ethiopian cadence clearly shows that he is comparing the only thing he can compare with the things that please him: beautiful women, which he was a womanizer, and, beautiful hair, blue eyes, whatever, breasty. But that's the only way he can describe it. You see, we're to be intimate with God like we are with our spouse, except for the sex part, because we won't have sexual organs in heaven. Neither will God. But we will be with him as intimate as that. We're not going to do physical things, right? It's an intimacy of a love of shared togetherness. And I've read many near-death experiences of where people come back and say that their love for God and his love for them was like more than their partners that they had. And they said that they long for that love again, to be there in his presence, because it's like beyond, it's beyond physical. It's beyond just making love. It's an intimacy that you've longed for all your life. So the garden and pastoral imagery soften intensity into lyric symbolism. Now, the Ethiopian phrasing often feels slightly more immediate in modern English, while the King James retains poetic gravitas through older syntax. So the difference here is tonal, but it's not doctrinal. And both witnesses allow the imagery to remain poetic rather than explicit. So this should reinforce that the song sanctifies embodied affection within ordered love. The poetry does not deny physical admiration. It frames it. And the examination must continue listening for balance, warmth without excess, detail without distortion, lyric without theatrical inflation. So the song does not present union without interruption. Moments of separations appear, and longing intensifies through temporary absence. These scenes must be heard very carefully. because tone determines whether the passage feels anxious, impatient, or poetically restrained. Here it is in the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Witness, and I quote, "By night on my bed I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but I did not find him. I will rise now and go out about the city, in the streets and in the squares. I will seek him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but I did not find him." Here's the same verses in the King James. "By night on my bed I sought him whom my soul loveth, but I found him not. I will rise now and go out about the city, in the streets, and in the broad ways. I will seek him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not." Here, the structure is almost identical. The repetition of "I sought him, but I did not find him" establishes a rhythm rather than panic. The Ethiopian rendering reads with smooth clarity, as the King James retains formal cadence through archaic verbs such as loveth and found him not, which may feel more solemn to modern ears. The absence described here is not abandonment, it is tension within relationship. The bride seeks, rises, walks through the city, and persists. He's anxious to see him. It's not that he's finding him and God's gone. It's like God's at work and he's waiting for God to come home at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever. And whenever they get off, he's anticipating, he's running around the city. So this would be the equivalent of a spouse walking around the house waiting for their partner to come home. So the bride seeks, rises, walks through the city, and persists. The repetition builds longing without collapsing into despair. The tone remains measured. And later in the passage, when she finds him, the language shifts from searching to holding. And it says, and I quote, "I held him and would not let him go until I had brought him to my mother's house." So the movement from absence to embrace reinforces that longing in the song is disciplined and it's not chaotic. The search does not dissolve into accusation. It matures into reunion. And tone matters deeply here in these verses because if translation intensifies emotion beyond poetic convention, well, the scene can feel frantic. Philip says, "I think it's the same love you feel for your own child, unconditional." Right. I agree. Now, if translation preserves repetition without exaggeration, the longing feels patient and steady. But witnesses maintain the rhythm without dramatization. And the setting of the city streets introduces vulnerability. The bride moves beyond private space and pursuit, yet the narrative does not turn threatening. It remains symbolic of searching within boundary rather than danger without protection. So theologically, longing is not condemned, it's refined. Desire that endures absence without collapsing into bitterness becomes stronger. So the song portrays love not as uninterrupted passion, but as covenant affection that survives delay. So the Ethiopian phrasings, its clarity, allows the repetition to breathe naturally. They complement each other. The King James cadence gives the repetition a formal weight, but neither witness alters the structure of seeking and finding. The emotional tone, however, is shaped subtly by rhythm and sound. The section reinforces that love in the song is not constant possession here. It includes waiting, searching, and reunion. The fire of affection is not extinguished by absence. It's just tempered by it. And the examination must continue listening for how translation preserves this discipline of longing without exaggeration or even flattening it. So the song rises to its most concentrated declaration near its close. After longing, searching, praise, and reunion, the poetry compresses into a single image, fire. Now, the language becomes intense, but it's not chaotic. Remember how you felt when you met your spouse the first time? When you met them, you know nothing about them, but you have this attraction to them and you have a longing to get to know them. That's the fire that we're talking about. And then let's say that you guys hit it off and for months you can't stop thinking about each other. That's fire. And that's longing, searching, praise, and reunion. It's the poetry compressed into a single image, fire. So the language becomes intense, but it's not chaotic. So it must be heard very carefully because tone here hookup shapes whether love is perceived as destructive passion or covenant strength. Here it is in the Ethiopian Tewahedo witness, and I quote, "Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is strong as death, jealousy is fierce as the grave. Its flames are flames of fire, a mighty flame. Many waters cannot quench love, nor can floods drown it." Now here's that same in the King James rendering. "Set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thine arm. For love is strong as death, jealousy is cruel as the grave. The coals thereof are coals of fire, which hath a most vehement flame. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can the floods drown it." So the structure is again parallel, yet tonal nuances appear. The Ethiopian's renderings, a mighty flame, feels focused and controlled, yet the King James phrase, a most vehement flame, well, it intensifies the language. Or jealousy as fierce as the grave verses, or cruel as the grave, also shifts the emotional coloring here. Fierce suggests intensity, cruel suggests severity. So the line, "love is strong as death," is not romantic exaggeration. Death is the great equalizer named in Ecclesiastes. To say that love is as strong as death elevates it into covenant performance and permanence. And it is not fleeting appetite. It's enduring the bond. And the image of seal upon heart and arm reinforces belonging. Because a seal marks ownership, protection, and covenant identity. The heart suggests inward devotion, and the arm suggests outward strength. But love here is not impulse, it is marked commitment. So the fire imagery, it must be heard within boundary. Fire can destroy. But here it is described as unquenchable rather than destructive. Many waters cannot quench love. Well, the flame is not wildfire consuming everything. It is covenant fire that cannot be extinguished by adversity. Boots says, "Next month, I'll be married to the same woman 44 years. Wow. I've been denied parole every time she gets pissed when I can't find an expiration date on her marriage certificate." Boots, I didn't realize you were such an awesome comedian. That's funny. Well, congratulations, though. 44 years. Amen. God bless you guys. So tone determines whether the passage feels volatile or steadfast. I know you love her, Boots. I know you love her, and she loves you. So if translation intensifies language into explosive imagery, then love may sound dangerous and uncontrolled. Well, if translation preserves strength without excess, then love sounds resilient and anchored. So the Ethiopian's phrasing clearly often feels steady. And the King James cadence, especially most vehement flame, can heighten intensity for modern ears. So theologically, though, this passage stands at the heart of the song. Love is not a light sentiment. It is force equal to mortality. Love resists extinction. Love survives opposition, yet it remains framed within seal and belonging, but not chaos. You're welcome, Boots. The mutual request to be set as a seal reveals that love seeks permanence. It desires to be marked. Remember, the Bible says God is love. He's made of love. That's his substance. But it desires to be marked, not merely felt. This reinforces the covenant dimension woven through the book. And this section of the Song of Solomon, it gathers the song's imagery into concentrated power. Desire matures into covenant flame. The examination must listen closely to how each witness renders this intensity, whether as steady strength or heart or heightened passion. Well, in poetry, even adjectives like mighty or vehement can tilt perception. Love here is not passing fragrance. It is enduring fire. It's like the sun. It just won't go out. It just continues to be bright. And the question remains whether translation preserves its steadiness within covenant order or amplifies its intensity beyond that balance. So after the declaration that love is strong as death and unquenchable as flame, the song returns to imagery of ownership, vineyard, and stewardship. The intensity of fire settles into the language of responsibility. The text must be heard carefully, because tone here determines whether belonging feels covenantal or possessive. Here it is in the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Witness, and I quote, "Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. My vineyard, which is mine, is before me. You, O Solomon, may have 1,000, and those who tend its fruits 200. Here it is in the King James rendering. Set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thine arm. My vineyard, which is mine, is before me. Thou, O Solomon, must have 1,000, and those that keep the fruit thereof 200. So the phrase, set me as a seal, carries covenant weight. A seal marks identity, authority, protection. It does not imply domination. It implies belonging. And God's giving him something. And the beloved desire here to be placed at the center, heart and arm, that's inner devotion and outward strength. So the tone is intimate, but it's not coercive. The vineyard imagery reinforces stewardship. A vineyard is cultivated and guarded. It is not a wild field. And when the bride says, my vineyard, which is mine, is before me, she speaks of agency. She is not absorbed into possession. She stands within the covenant as a participant. So the Ethiopian phrasing reads with direct clarity here. The King James cadence introduces formal gravity through thine and must have, and the difference is slight, but sound shapes atmosphere. Neither witness alters the structure of belonging, but the emotional coloring can feel warmer or more ceremonial. So the mention of 1,000 and 200 suggests value and provision without reducing love to transaction. So the vineyard produces fruit, but the fruit is tended, not exploited. And the imagery remains agricultural rather than commercial. So tone matters here because possession language can easily be misread. If translation intensifies ownership vocabulary without preserving mutuality, then the passage may sound hierarchical or hierarchical. If translation maintains balance, then belonging remains covenantal rather than controlling. So the repetition of seal, vineyard, and fruit anchors the song's earlier metaphors. The garden enclosed becomes vineyard guarded. The flame of love becomes covenant marked. Desire matures into responsibility. So theologically, the seal upon the heart and arm suggests permanence beyond feeling. It implies identity. Love becomes woven into character and action. So it's not a seasonal impulse, it's sustained commitment. So both witnesses preserve this structure. The Ethiopian renderings clarity emphasizes agency and enclosure. The King James cadence carries poetic dignity, but the examination continues to weigh whether tone shifts intimacy toward possession or preserves mutual covenant. So in this section here, the song settles into intensity, into stewardship. Its intensity into stewardship. So the fire remains, but it's now marked and tended. So love is not only strong, it's sealed. Now the song closes not with spectacle, but with invitation. The flame declared earlier does not erupt into chaos. It actually settles into mutual presence. And the final lines must be heard as culmination, not escalation. Here it is in the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Witness, and I quote, "You who dwell in the gardens, the companions listen for your voice. Let me hear it. Make haste, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag upon the mountains of spices." Here's that same in the King James. Thou that dwellest in the gardens, the companions hearken to thy voice. Cause me to hear it. Make haste, my beloved, and be thou like to a roe or to a young hart upon the mountains of spices. So the closing cadence mirrors the opening longing. The song began with, "Let him kiss me." It ends with, "Make haste, my beloved." Desire remains alive, but it is not frantic. It is invited within shared space. The Ethiopian phrasing reads with gentle immediacy, "Let me hear it." The King James, "Cause me to hear it." There's a difference there. That carries slightly stronger imperative tone. The difference is subtle, but it's perceptible. One sounds like request, and the other sound like a command. So tone here shapes the atmosphere of the final exchange, and I think that's important. The beloved dwells in the gardens, while the enclosure imagery remains intact. The setting is cultivated and shared. The companions listen, suggesting that love, while intimate, exists within community recognition rather than isolation. So the final image of the gazelle or young stag echoes earlier pastoral metaphors. Movement remains graceful rather than urgent, and the mountains of spices recall fragrance from the opening chapter. So the song closes the circle it began: fragrance, gardening, longing, invitation. But theologically, the ending does not dissolve into allegory or abstraction. It preserves embodiment, affection within covenant order. Love remains strong, but it is not reckless. It remains warm, but it is not unguarded. So tone here determines whether the book feels unfinished or cyclically complete. And the return to invitation mirrors the opening desire, suggesting continuity rather than closure. So covenant love is not static, it is living. So both witnesses preserve the structure and the imagery faithfully. The difference lies in the cadence. Modern clarity in the Ethiopian rendering versus archaic lyric form in the King James, but neither really alters the theology. And the sound of intimacy shifts slightly depending on the phrasing. But Song of Solomon ends as it began, with longing expressed and welcomed. The fire has not consumed the garden, it's warmed it. And the examination concludes by listening to whether translation preserves that balance: desire within boundary, flame within enclosure, and joy within divine order. So to conclude, Song of Solomon does not interrupt theology. It actually embodies it. Where Ecclesiastes exposed vapor and measured mortality, the song affirms embodied covenant joy. It does not deny longing, it orders it. It does not suppress desire, it frames it within mutual belonging and disciplined timing. The book moves through fragrance, garden, flame, seal, and vineyard, each image reinforcing that love is powerful, but not chaotic. The comparison between the Ethiopian Tewahedo witness and the King James rendering has revealed strong structural consistency. Dialogue remains mutual. Boundary language remains clear. The refrain of restraint remains intact, and the climactic declaration that love is strong as death stands firm in both traditions. So the theological core is not altered here, yet the cadence shapes your perception. Words such as fragrance and perfume versus savor and ointment, or mighty flame versus most vehement flame, until it so desires versus till he please. Well, these subtly influence the emotional tone. And if you don't understand what the author is trying to say, you could, through the King James, read it as an angry God. That's all I'm saying. But the scripture isn't, and the King James doesn't portray an angry God if you understand it. And the only way I know how to understand it isn't by becoming a theological professor. It's by reading the Ethiopian version alongside it. Then you can see what God is trying to say. So the Ethiopian rendering often reads with immediate clarity, while the King James carries lyrical gravity and archaic elevation. But neither distorts the song's architecture. But each produces slightly different atmosphere. I'm sure you could all agree. Now, in poetry, atmosphere is not incidental. It determines whether the song feels tender or theatrical, intimate or ceremonial. Because this book is built on metaphor and rhythm rather than argument, well, tonal nuances become theology in sound. A heightened adjective can amplify intensity. A softened phrase can preserve restraint. But throughout the examination, the enclosure imagery remained central. Garden enclosed, fountain sealed, vineyard guarded, seal upon heart and arm. These metaphors protect the song from misreading. And love here is not impulse without boundary. It is covenant fire that cannot be quenched, yet remains contained within belonging. And I have to say, guys, all of you in America, you've been given a 4th grade educational lesson in English. Without understanding English like they did back in the Old English, you're not going to understand the King James Bible. So the Ethiopian is going to help you enjoy it. I don't know why I say enjoy it, but help you understand it. I just read what Boot said. So both witnesses preserves the mutuality of voice, and the bride does speak, and the bridegroom does answer. And admiration flows in both directions, as this symmetry reinforces equality within affection rather than dominance. And the final invitation echoes the beginning as completing a circle of longing and response. The song closes not in excess, but in continuity, as desire remains alive yet ordered, and flame remains strong yet it's guarded. The guiding question of this examination remains consistent, however. Does translation alter theology, or does it shape cadence? Well, in Song of Solomon, theology is expressed through sound and metaphor. Even slight tonal shifts can reshape how sacred intimacy is heard. The song affirms that covenant is not only commandment and judgment. It is delight, belonging, and sealed affection. Where vapor reminded humanity of limitation, well, the song reminds humanity of union within order. So the balance must be preserved carefully in translation, as love here is not spectacle, it is covenant joy within divine boundary. This has been Cause Before Symptom. I'm your host, James Carner. Tune in tomorrow night when we have another session about comparing the differences between the Ethiopian Tewahedo and the King James Version. God bless you. God keep you. God thank you for supporting my channel. I will see you guys mañana.
This has been Cause Before Symptom with your host, James Carner. Go to his website, jamescarner.com, and sign up for his newsletter. Also, download his free books on the breath war, the crown of blood, and the ritual machine. Fix your body by buying his award-winning detox formula, removing heavy metals and parasites. You'll feel better and live longer. Go to elitepotion.com. And one more thing, please. Just try and love your neighbor, because if you do, the world would be a better place. See you tomorrow.